Hey everyone, through this video, I'm going to go ahead and review the process to completing the congruent triangles assignment. So in order to complete the assignment, remember, your goal is to use all four of the theorems or postulates that you've learned to prove congruent triangles. So one of the four is side, 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 which we abbreviate SSS. The next of the four, side, angle, side, abbreviated SAS. The next, angle, side, angle, abbreviated ASA. And the last, angle, angle, side, abbreviated AAS. So your goal is to use all four. That means you will only use one for each of the images below. So down here below, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 different images. You decide for which you would like to use side, 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 for which you would like to use side, angle, side, and so forth. What's important is not where you decide to use each one, but whether you can show that you've used each of those theorems postulates accurately. Let me walk you through the process of how I created this example. I'm going to double click on my image, which is already edited. So let me walk you through the process of how I added these lines and the letters for the vertices and that circle or triangle or any symbol to represent the angle. I'm going to go ahead and start deleting everything I have here. And I'll just walk you through the process of what I did to get those there and how I decided what to insert in each specific area. The first thing I needed to realize is, or make a decision on, is which of the four rules I wanted to use. For this specific example, I decided I wanted to start with SAS, side, angle, side. So now I had to first label the vertices. So I used my text tool right here. Click on text box, text tool. I came on over to one of the vertices and I typed K. I want that to stand out a little more, so I'll go in here into the color settings and adjust this to a red. And I'm going to bold it up so it actually stands out a little bit more. And now, rather than redoing that for each of the vertices, what I did to speed up the process is I duplicated this. So you can use Control-D on your Chromebooks to duplicate this. Or I believe you'll see it here in the options, duplicate. I drag it over to this vertice, and I'm going to change that letter to I. So that's my second. That's my second vertice. I'm going to duplicate this again or copy paste it and then go ahead and put that on this corner or vertice. And now we have the triangle KID. I'm going to repeat that process for the other triangle in the back. I'm going to call this F. Let me go ahead and drag it over. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that one. I'm going to call this one U. Go ahead and drag this over. And I'll go ahead and duplicate this last one. Call that N. And I'll drag it over to the last vertice. So now we have our two triangles, triangle KID and triangle FUN. Now it's time to, again, insert lines, angles, depending on which of the theorems or postulates you decide to use. Because I'm deciding to start with SAS, side, angle, side, I'm going to label a side. I'm going to start with side KI. And right here, for KI, I will go with this line color, this blue, nice blue right here. And the thickness, I'm going with 4, just to make sure it stands out really well. I'm now going to select this line. I'm simply going to copy paste it or duplicate it and move it on over to represent FU, which is the corresponding side on the other triangle over there in the back. Now I'm going to go ahead and continue with my angle. So I'm going side followed by the angle. So for my angle, in my original example, which you have access to, I use a triangle. I'll show you I can use a circle if I want, or oval here. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this in this little corner area to represent that angle. I'm going to change this to the yellow, which I'm using in my description. Again, I want to duplicate this and send it on over to the other angle that's corresponding. So the placement there is fine. I could move them slightly up, but that's good enough. This is angle I, and that is angle U. Lastly, I need my third part or third set of corresponding parts, which is the side. So we have a side followed by an angle. Now we need a third side. So for my third side, I'm connecting I to D. So I to D, and again, I'm going to select a color that I'm using in my explanation. And I'll go ahead and select the thickness to 4. And now I want to duplicate this. Use my selecting tool so I can drag it on over. Notice it doesn't actually come out the same size in the image, so you have to resize it. That's because of the perspective of the picture. But realistically, this side, ID, is congruent to UN. So there you go. That's how I went ahead and labeled each of the corresponding parts. Now that I have all my corresponding parts labeled, each with a different color, I can use that to go ahead and write out my description, which you see is already pre-filled out here. So I wrote, if side KI is congruent to side FU. So that's right here, KI congruent to side FU. That's my first of my 3 parts, so the sides. Followed by angle I, right here in yellow, therefore highlighted in yellow here, congruent to angle U, right over here. And lastly, side ID is congruent to side UN. So here we have ID in the first triangle, UN in the second triangle. Then triangle KID, so triangle KID, is congruent to triangle FUN, triangle fun, according to side angle side, according to this postulate. So that's how I went ahead and used side angle side, using correlating colors, editing my image to make sure everything visually stands out and represents my understanding of the use of the side angle side postulate in this image that I gave you here.